Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is the Big Show. I am Paul Zeise. We do the Big Show every single day. We talk all kinds of things. We usually like to talk about the Pittsburgh-related sports, of course, because it is the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and most of you are listening to us or watching us at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette website. And you can tell it's June, and I'll tell you how you can tell it's June. Because last night was the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm going to go out on a limb and say tomorrow night Oklahoma City is going to finish off Indiana. And so hockey and basketball will be over, and basically all you're going to have is baseball. And, well, baseball, as popular as it is somewhat of a niche sport. So I'm going to let you in a little bit on the secret here. In the media, June until early August, when football really starts, training camp starts and whatnot, we're all scraping and scratching and trying to figure out what the hell we're going to talk about or what the hell we're going to write about and what the hell, people care about at this point, which means an onslaught of lists and, all century teams. And, I saw one guy today, one site that does college football today, college sports, I should say. They're starting a series where they're going to take they're putting together the all-time teams from each college, right? And then they're going to try and put together some sort of a bracket type thing. So today I saw the Texas Tech all-time team. I saw I want to say maybe the Illinois all-time team. I mean, I guess we could have fun with it if you wanted to do Pitt's all-time team. Honestly, I think there's three guys that probably have to be on Pitt's all-time team: Charles Smith, Billy Knight, and Jerome Lane, I would say, although some people would say Sam Clancy should be the power forward. But whatever. There's two other spots. I think we could argue a lot about it. I probably would have Brandon Knight as one of the other two spots, and just because of everything he accomplished and whatnot. But, that's the kind of thing. So this is where we come to. ESPN put together the the 25th century team, or what are they calling it? The all-quarter century team, which is 25 years. Now, in order to do it, you also have to have criteria. And so here it is. Their criteria is, how would you put together a 53-man roster for the upcoming season based on the guys who played the last 25 years? So, players are still eligible if they began their career in the 1990s, but only production beginning in 2000 season was considered. So I would have to think long and hard. I'm not sure, but let's say you had a quarterback who was absolutely incredible through the 90s, and he played to 2000 and 2001, and it was clear that his career was over, but he did play. That's not a guy that's going to make the team because his best years were in the 90s. The second thing is the decisions were made mostly on statistical output, focusing on peak seasons while still rewarding longevity, relied heavily on DYAR metric, defense-adjusted yards above replacement, calculate a player's value over the course of the season compared to replacement level baseline. Other advanced stats were also taken into account. Team includes 25 offensive players, 23 defensive players, 5 special teamers. For another wrinkle, they filled out a practice squad. We followed current NFL rules, which includes 17 players. If one was brought in from the International Player Pathway Program. In other words, 16 players and one international guy. So they put together the elite coaching staff as well. Let's start with the coaches, because this is very, very interesting, to me. Let's start with the coaches. I mean, there's probably no argument that can be made, I would think, that the head coach, should be Bill Belichick. I mean, you win as much as that guy's won. and did it for as long as he did it, I don't think there's any way that you could make an argument for anybody else. Now, interestingly enough, when you look at how they break it down, they have the two coordinators. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive coordinator. I don't know, man. I look at that Super Bowl and I got to ask questions, really, to be honest. When they had a 28-3 lead, if you're an offensive coordinator, it's not the defensive coordinator who lost that game, it's the offensive coordinator. Wade Phillips is a guy that everyone loves, and Dave Taub is the special teams coordinator. Not that we really care, but those are the coaches. To be honest, the only one I really cared about was Bill Belichick. I was like, if they have anybody other than Bill Belichick, it's silly. But let's go through. There's a lot of people that are jammed up because there's really only two Steelers that I could tell. There's only two Steelers that made the team. And it's amazing when you think about it. But by the same token, I don't know that they're completely wrong. The two Steelers that made the team, obviously, one of them is Troy Polamalu. I don't know if there's any other even argument for him not being a part of it. I mean, to me, you talk about safety, you talk about him, you talk about Ed Reed. And those are the two guys that really matter at safety in my book. I mean, those two guys, and the funny thing is they're different kinds of safeties. Everyone wants to compare them, but the reality is they're really kind of different. And so when I look at it from that standpoint, I honestly think that, you can't put them in the same category because I don't know that either one of them are the same in what they do and how they do it. But the other guy obviously is Alan Faneca, Hall of Famer, really just an incredible player, obviously for the Steelers. And that's it. And then when you look at on their practice squad, I think there was two players that made the practice squad from the Steelers. And one of them was Antonio Brown, which I'll get to. One of them was Antonio Brown, and one of them was TJ Watt. And so I got to be honest with you, when I look at edge rushers, I've got some real questions. And again, TJ Watt is what he is, and I think that he's been an incredible player. But I also wonder, okay, and Cam Heyward, that's the other guy. So Cam Heyward, TJ Watt, Antonio Brown. Practice squad guys. Now, I think the thing that most people are upset about when it comes to the all-century or quarter-century team is that TJ Watt is not on it and Myles Garrett is on it. And I would agree with that, honestly. TJ Watt should be there ahead of Myles Garrett. There's no question. But here's what really drives me crazy about the Myles Garrett discussion, okay? There are people in Pittsburgh that act like he's terrible, that he's not good at all, that he's a guy that's just so incredibly overrated, he shouldn't even be in the discussion. Let's not get crazy. Myles Garrett and TJ Watt are close. They're using the Pro Football Focus stat of pass rush wins, 522 more than TJ Watt at 467. And he did that while maintaining the third highest double team rate edge, 27% of all qualifying edge rushers. First team All Pro, half of those seasons. Here's the thing, and this is what drives me crazy. This thing about, we're going to do pass rush wins. Okay? How about sacks? How about sacks and quarterback hurries? Sacks, quarterback hurries, and hits. Because that's what matters. It's just absolutely silly to me some of these analytics, where they look at, different things and they say, well, this is what really matters. No. How does your analytics translate to the field? And to me, when I look at that, I mean, TJ Watt has actually been better than Myles Garrett at affecting the game. Forget about nonsensical things like pass rush wins. I don't even know what that means. I mean, so you're watching film and so if he beats his guy off the edge and the dude runs the other way for 60 yards down the field, that's good. I don't know. I mean, my point is, what are you doing to affect the game? Pass rush wins to me is silly because I don't think it actually legitimately matters. It just doesn't. And so I feel like, it's going to be hard to make that stick as an argument. It just is. So I feel like really, if you're going to make a discussion point or trying to make a discussion point of how are we going to, quantify things, well, to me, go with real stats. Period. I mean, and I think that Myles Garrett's a really, really elite player, but he's not better than TJ Watt. Not as an edge rusher. DeMarcus Ware is a guy that's on the list. Okay. Actually, his resume is better than I thought it would be. Jared Allen's on the list. Myles Garrett's on the list. Julius Peppers on the list. Michael Strahan is on the list. And TJ Watt. Those are the guys. I mean, that's a pretty significant list. And I think that it's one of those things where I look at the list and I say all of those guys probably have a really strong case to be the guy on it, honestly. But here's another guy. How about Von Miller? Not even considered here. But anyway, I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I don't know how you leave Von Miller out of this, but I get it. So now, when you look at that, there's the one thing that I'd say we probably all will have an argument with. The one guy that I just don't see how you put it on there over TJ Watt is Myles Garrett. And I think, his defensive player of the year was just fraudulent. But I'm not one of these guys who believes that he is, terrible or he's, so overrated and not even close and all that. I don't believe that. I think he's pretty good. I think he's really good. I just don't think he's as good as TJ Watt. Defensive tackles, Aaron Donald is the freak show. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue with that. Calais Campbell's been doing it for a long, long time. And if you remember when he was on the Jaguars, he was on the team. He terrorized, tortured the Steelers when they played him. He was really good. And then, of course, he was good with the Ravens. He's been doing it for a long time. Chris Jones is really, really good. And then, I mean, the thing about Cam Heyward is he doesn't have the stats, but he's a practice squad guy because people know he's really, really good. He doesn't have some of the stats of those guys, but he does have enough where people say, okay, you know what? He should be in this list. He's made Pro Bowls. He's been one of the best players in the league. I'm okay with that. It's kind of funny. Versatile defensive lineman, which basically means we need to find a way to get J.J. Watt on this team, which is what they did. Now, linebackers are interesting. Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher, okay. Levante David. I mean, there's a guy I would not have thought about, but maybe, I don't know. Bobby Wagner has been really, really good. Brian Urlacher, Luke Kuechly is a guy. Derek Brooks is the practice squad guy. So, I'm thinking of the Steelers, and, they've had some really good linebackers. James Ferrier, Joey Porter Sr. I know he's probably considered an edge rusher, but still, they've had some really good players at that position. Some would argue that if you think about it, they probably have not had great inside linebackers ever since Ryan Shazier got hurt. But I don't know. There's some really good players that were left off, the Steelers. I think corners. I don't know who would be the best corner. Ike Taylor, maybe. I don't know. Jalen Ramsey's on this list as a practice squad guy. If you look at the guys that are listed, Patrick Peterson, Rondé Barber, Richard Sherman. I mean, I don't think you can argue. Obviously, Darrelle Revis. I don't think you can make an argument elsewhere that they wouldn't or shouldn't belong. Here's where I have another thing that I really take exception to. Okay, 6 wide receivers and then 2 on the practice squad. Randy Moss, no argument. Calvin Johnson, no argument. Julio Jones, we'll get to. Terrell Owens, no argument. Marvin Harrison and Justin Jefferson. Okay, hold up. Practice squad guys. Antonio Brown and Andre Johnson. Antonio Brown should be on this list. I know, he's wanted for murder or whatever's going on right now. I know he's, insane. I know all that stuff. But I'm going to tell you, the 6 years that Antonio Brown had are the best 6 years that anybody not named Jerry Rice has ever had at that position. I mean, you want to tell me Randy Moss is better than Antonio Brown, because of his entirety of his career? I'll go with that. Calvin Johnson, I might go with that. I know this. If I have one game to win and I can have any of these guys at their peak, I know I'm taking Antonio Brown. I don't think people fully understand how good he was. But here's the other thing. Guy with some Pittsburgh connections. How about Larry Fitzgerald? I mean, Andre Johnson is a nice receiver. Justin Jefferson's a nice receiver. Even Marvin Harrison's a nice receiver. None of them are Larry Fitzgerald. And I'm not just overrating him because he's was in Pittsburgh or a Pitt guy or whatever. I'm just telling you, you got to be out of your mind. Antonio Brown and Larry Fitzgerald, not only they should both be on the active squad. They really should. I mean, that's just, I don't know. That's what I would tell you. I think it's, kind of ridiculous, to be honest. I don't have a problem with their quarterbacks, Brady, Manning, and Mahomes. I mean, those are the 3 best probably of that group. Aaron Rodgers is a practice squad guy. Drew Brees is a practice squad guy. I don't have a problem with that. Some people probably would say, what about Ben? I don't know. I think Ben would be behind those guys in my mind. But I can certainly understand if people want Ben on there just because, he's a guy who had a great run, obviously from 2004 to like 2015 or something, or I'm sorry, 15. What am I saying? 2004 to 2021, something like that. Anyway, these lists are what they are. And I know people are upset because there's only 2 Steelers that are on the actual roster, and there's 3 guys on the practice squad. I would tell you, I think the most egregious error in this entire thing is not T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett, because I think T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett are very similar. I think they're close. I don't necessarily think that, one guy is that much better than the other guy that we have to sit here and, micromanage. T.J. Watt should be on the team and Myles Garrett should be the practice squad guy. I can almost live with that the way it is, because, again, I don't see that there's this great big separation between those two. I hear people, I love when people say on Twitter and stuff, T.J. Watt is better than Myles Garrett, and it's not close. Almost always, if you have to designate it's not close, unless it's really legitimately not close, it probably is pretty close. And those two are pretty close in terms of where they're at. I'm just going to tell you, I think the most egregious mistake, or whatever you want to call it, and I don't care what your analytics say and all the other crap, okay? If you asking me, I'm looking at these receivers. There is no way that you should leave Larry Fitzgerald and especially Antonio Brown off the list. I just think that's where the biggest mistake was made. Antonio Brown, like I said, he's crazy. He's had all kinds of issues. He's been a guy who's been in trouble a lot. He's been a guy that's done things that, probably we're very embarrassed for him. But that doesn't matter. What matters is he's got to be considered one of the 2 or 3 best receivers probably of all time. And I know that there's a discussion about, there's another guy that really, if you want to think about Steeler receivers, Hines Ward. I know he's not a Hall of Famer, but Hines Ward could have been considered for this, to be honest. Hines Ward could be, it's one of those things where I would say, if you look at Hines Ward, he's a guy that probably has an argument. But again, I'm not quite as bad. I'm not quite in a place where I would say, you know what, that's really a big problem. Because I think that, he's probably right underneath what I would consider to be, where I would consider that to be possibly one of these things where he's probably just right below that. Period. Oh, wait, someone else pointed this out. You're right, I forgot about this. There is a third Steeler on the first team. Patrick Peterson. But again, I don't know that we saw the version that would make this team for real. But yeah, like Hines Ward probably is just below those top guys. So I can live with him not being on it. I can live with that. But I cannot live with is Antonio Brown being left off. And I think one of the things, it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be very interesting. But when you look at it, Antonio Brown should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. No questions asked. A first ballot Hall of Famer. One other interesting thing is Vince Wilfork was named, the nose tackle. And I'm assuming it's because he played in so many Super Bowls, but was he really better than Casey Hampton? That's a really good question as well. But again, it's similar to the Myles Garrett, TJ Watt thing where I say, that's probably close enough. You know what I'm saying? That's probably close enough where I can say, yeah, I could definitely see that. Where Vince Wilfork, give him the edge because of all the Super Bowls he played in and all that other good stuff. But I mean, if you think about it, another guy, really, if you want to put running backs out there, Jerome Bettis is another guy who I think maybe is overlooked a little bit. So, again, it's June. All of these lists come up, and you wonder who's on what list and why they're on this list and who's that. I would tell you, I saw a list of all-time last quarter century of Pitt players, football, pick 22 guys. And, it's amazing when people are putting together these lists, the recency bias. Because I can be honest with you, I think the teams from like 2002, 2003, even 2004 were better than the teams, even the team that won the ACC a few years ago. I think the 2002 team and the 2001 team probably would have beaten that team that won the ACC a few years ago. And there's a lot of really good players on those teams. And so in this case, I think they did a pretty good job for the most part, but I have to really, really wonder, honestly, I have to really, really wonder when I see some of these names if they're just trying to spread the wealth out to other teams or whatever, because to me, it's just kind of an amazing thing. And by the way, it said basically, Vince Wilfork hit 105 in approximate value. Another one of these pro football references that attributes a single number on the seasonal value of a player. It's the most by any nose tackle in our span, the fourth most among defensive tackles, regardless of alignment. That's what gives him the edge over five-time Pro Bowler Casey Hampton. Again, come on, man. Come on. You want to tell me that he's a five-time All-Pro and that gives him an edge over Casey Hampton? I might listen to that. But again, I think at that position, I don't know. Casey Hampton's really, really good. Really good. So I'm not sure what we're talking about when we talk about these things, but it's going to be very interesting to see, how this is all received. Clearly, Steeler fans are most upset about T.J. Watt being left off, but I'm going to tell you, it's not T.J. Watt that you should be upset about. It's Aaron Rodgers. I'm not Aaron Rodgers. It's Antonio Brown. That's the biggest snub in my mind. I mean, I look at those receivers, and again, okay, I might listen to, obviously I will listen to Randy Moss, of course. One of the best of all time. But if you want me to sit here and listen to guys like Marvin Harrison over Antonio Brown, come on, man. Justin Jefferson over Antonio Brown, come on, man. And even though he didn't play for the Steelers, he's got a Pittsburgh connection. Larry Fitzgerald's another guy. I think those are two of the most egregious mistakes that were made, to be honest. What are we doing here? We're here? Okay, good. By the way, the game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's. Archie's home of the 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. Get down to Archie's. When you're there, tell Archie I said hello. Moving on a little bit here. We're going to go, first of all, I got to get this off my chest. Why is it that Pittsburgh hockey fans are so insecure that no matter what happens, they have to bring it back to Sidney Crosby and Mario Lemieux? I don't get that. Like, last night I'm looking at social media, obviously Florida, who, by the way, are much better than Edmonton. Florida is much better than Edmonton. And Edmonton's not going to win. With the goalies they have, they're not going to win anything until they get better goalies. Clearly. Okay? But I think last year, McDavid set a record, didn't he, for points scored or goals scored or both maybe in the playoffs? His numbers this year were fantastic. But as soon as they lost, we had all these weirdos on social media saying, Sidney Crosby, don't put him in that category until he wins a cup and all this other nonsense. Why are you so insecure that we always got to come back to Sidney Crosby or Mario Lemieux? Here's the thing. Connor McDavid is really, really an elite player. And I think by the time he's done, he'll be one of the 5 or 6 that's ever played. This idea that somehow, it's threatening to the legacy of Crosby and Crosby and Lemieux is silly. One doesn't have anything to do with the other. One of my biggest pet peeves is this thing, and the worst part is it's a number of media members who are on that bandwagon as well. I mean, listen. If Sidney Crosby had the goaltending that Edmonton had, he'd have 0 cups as well. Just so happened he had Matt Murray, who was really, really good, and Marc-Andre Fleury, who was really, really good. Both of those. Now Murray, something mentally happened to him and he fell apart. But those guys are both better, and better by a lot, actually, than Edmonton's goalies. So the idea that somehow because McDavid hasn't won it yet is silly. That somehow that's that's the be all end all in the comparison, with Lemieux and Crosby. I mean, it just is what it is. Does he need to win to really cement his legacy? Probably, but nothing I've seen the last 2 years suggests that it's his fault that they're losing. It'd be one thing if they were losing games 1-0. Last night they gave up 5 goals. The game was over there before it even started, really. And let me add this. Florida is much better than Edmonton. That much is very clear. Honestly. I think Florida is an all-time team. Florida, this will probably get me in trouble with some people. I think Florida is better than all 3 of Crosby's teams. Just is. It is what it is. But this idea that we've got to protect his legacy or something that's so stupid. It's ridiculous. Actually ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, the Pirates lost again. I don't know how many more times we have to watch Carmen Majinski pitch, but it's just stupid now. I'm of the opinion they should go through the roster of Indianapolis and they should go through the roster of Altoona and bring up every guy. Every guy that has a pulse, and replace all these guys that they have that are just not going to be a part of anything. Honestly. I mean, you've got basically some good pieces, I guess. But if you're asking me, we see Tommy Pham way too much. We see Brian Reynolds too much. We see Brian Hayes too much. Go get guys that are going to actually maybe build something this year so that next year you don't have to start off fresh and new and everything else. Period. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I think it's one of those things where, you know what? I just am tired of the Pirates. I just get to a point where I'm tired of them. And that's where I'm at right now. Tired of watching them every single night do the same exact things. It's absurd. It really is. Anyway, we'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself. And we'll be talking some more. Maybe I'll find some more lists to talk about or something like that. Interestingly enough, the Travelers actually starts tomorrow. And, of course, the Travelers, the winning score for that guy is going to be like 22, 23 under, and everybody will be happy again after, watching or actually, playing on Oakmont and, what was the winning score? -1, and it took a miracle putt on the last hole to get to -1. So, anyway, it should be fun. The Travelers will be probably -22, -23. All right.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.